All right, let's get right into it. We are going to break down how you can get those professional, truly radio-ready vocals right from your own home. And I'll tell you right now, the secret is probably not what you think it is. You know that feeling, right? That frustration when you record a vocal part you absolutely love, but when you play it back, it just sounds like a demo. Well, the good news is that whole era of settling for good enough for home, yeah, that's officially over. So here's the absolute heart of the matter. We are not going to try and fix it in the mix. The entire point here is to show you how to nail the sound at the source. That way, mixing becomes this fun, creative choice, not some desperate rescue mission. Okay, before we even think about touching a microphone, we have to start with the most important instrument of all, your mindset. This is the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about. I love this because it totally flips the script on what we think we're supposed to be doing. Your goal isn't to chase some technically perfect, flawless take. It's about capturing a performance that feels real, a performance that connects with somebody. A little bit of human imperfection, totally fine. A lifeless, boring vocal? That's a deal breaker. And this slide just nails the challenge we're all up against. See, in a big commercial studio, everything is set up to help you focus inward, to feel comfortable and just sing with confidence. But at home, you're not just the singer, you're also the engineer. You're staring at the computer screen, you're worrying about the tech, and all of that creates pressure and makes you self-conscious. The technology actually gets in the way of the art. So how do we fix that? Simple. We have to intentionally create a performance space. Lower the lights, set a mood. If staring at the screen makes you nervous, turn it away. And this is a big one. Give yourself permission to mess up. Just keep singing through it. The real emotion, the magic, it so often lives in those takes you are about to delete. All right, so we've got our heads in the right space. Now let's talk about the physical tools and see how they build on that foundation. We're talking about your microphone, your distance from it, and a couple of key controls. This question. This is the one that just paralyzes so many of us in our home studios. You see your favorite artists using some vintage mic that costs more than a car, and you immediately think you're at a disadvantage. But the answer, honestly, is a hard no. What you really need is one good, solid microphone that you know inside and out. Learning how your mic responds to your voice is so much more valuable than owning a dozen expensive mics you don't really understand. Now, for most vocals at home, a good condenser mic is going to be your best bet because it captures all that detail. Just be careful with the super, super cheap ones. They can sound kind of brittle and harsh. A dynamic mic, on the other hand, is amazing at rejecting room noise, but it needs a ton of clean power from your preamp, which, frankly, a lot of beginner interfaces struggle to provide without adding a bunch of hiss. And here it is, one of the most powerful and totally free tools you have at your disposal. Your starting point should be about 6 to 8 inches away from the microphone. That's the sweet spot. It gives you that perfect balance of warmth and clarity without sounding boomy or picking up too much of the room. Seriously, I can't stress this enough. A pop filter is not optional. It does two critical things. One, it kills those ugly, bassy thumps from your P and B sounds. And two, it gives you a physical target to make sure you're keeping that perfect 6 to 8 inch distance. It's a super cheap tool that solves really expensive sounding problems. Okay, your performance is ready, your mic is all set up. So now, let's pull back the curtain on the journey your voice takes to actually get into the computer. We call it the signal chain, but it's not nearly as complicated as it sounds. Look, it's really just 4 simple steps. Your mic turns your voice into a tiny electrical signal. The preamp in your interface makes that signal bigger. The interface then turns it into computer language, zeros and ones, and your DAW, your recording software, just writes it all down. That's it. It's not magic, it's just a process. Now this chart right here, this visualizes the single most important concept in that whole chain. It's called gain staging. You want the loudest parts of your vocal to be hitting that green sweet spot, somewhere between -10 and -6 decibels. That red zone at the top, that's clipping, that's digital distortion. And once it's there forever. You can't get rid of it. This right here is the myth that has destroyed so many otherwise great home recordings. Recording a super loud signal doesn't make it sound more professional. It just puts you one loud note away from disaster. A clean recording with plenty of headroom can always be made louder later. But you can't undistort a vocal that was recorded too hot. Clean is always, always better. So let's talk about the biggest villain of a professional home recording, the room itself. I'm talking about those bare walls in your bedroom or office that are bouncing your voice right back into the mic. And here's the key distinction you have to understand. You don't need a soundproof bunker. You're not trying to block out the sound of a train going by. You're just trying to stop the sound of your own voice from reflecting off the walls and creating that hollow, boxy, amateur sound. The goal is absorption, not isolation. And the best part is you can do this without spending a ton of money. Start by hanging something heavy and absorbent, like a moving blanket, on the wall directly behind the microphone. Then, if you can, treat the walls to your left and right. And hey, the old trick of singing into a closet full of clothes, it absolutely works because all that fabric just soaks up those nasty reflections. Okay, so we've covered performance, we've covered the tools, the signal path, and the room. Let's bring it all home and talk about what radio ready actually means in today's world. Look, the goal is not sterile, robotic perfection. It's not a vocal that's been so auto-tuned and edited that it sounds like it was performed by a machine. A truly great radio-ready vocal is clear. It's controlled so it sits right in the song. But most of all, it's believable. It still sounds like a human being. That's the real definition. You know, when home recordings don't turn out right, it's almost never because of the gear anymore. The technology is just too good. The real weak link is rushing. Rushing the setup, rushing the performance, and then hoping you can just fix it all with plugins later. Professional results come from being slow and intentional, right from the very beginning. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Next time you hit that record button, ask yourself, what's the real goal here? Is it to capture a vocal track that's technically perfect? Or is it to capture a performance that makes another person feel something? Because when you really, truly focus on the second one, the first one has a funny way of taking care of itself.